Well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What a great way to start a week. And here we are at the very beginning, and we were only 7 minutes into this week. That means we got a whole week of tall tales ahead of us. Right. Absolutely. We couldn't be happier about that. Jose and I cherish the moments that we get to spend here chatting with, reading from, whatever, with our tailgaters out there in the international radio listening audience. So when it gets down to Friday, we're ordinarily pretty grim. We got 70 hours with no tall tales. We managed to get through it. It's tough. And come back bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on Monday afternoon. Here we are right now. So let me tell you what we've got. And Zemi Ikotny. Yeah, this is another really dynamite editorial. Make sure that you've got your socks pulled up, your seatbelts fastened. Don't have any loose objects laying around you. Guam Election Commission staff, key to successful election. Thousands of Guam's voters spent Saturday and a better part of last month participating in one of democracy's most important activities, casting their votes for the next team of decision makers and leaders. I didn't see very many of those on the ballot. I just voted for the usual slugs that were running. I saw a couple decision makers and leaders, but they're few and far between. But voting is more than just a right. It's a responsibility that calls on every constituent to play an active role in setting the course for Guam's future. It's the choice we make to exercise our right to vote, and the choice we make as we fill in the bubbles and cast our ballots that ultimately influence how we as voters decide how and who we will work with to build a better, stronger community together. Beautiful words. Really nice, yeah. I would refer to it as florid prose. Florid meaning flowery, yeah. But managing the mandates and functions of Guam's Election Commission and protecting the integrity of the election process from start to finish is a Herculean task with monumental stakes. Whether a new employee at GEC charged with handling the administrative functions, or if you were just a first-time participant who helped the GE staff at village voting precincts, your role was integral to the ensuring that all constituents were able to cast their ballots, feeling confident that their voice and vote would count accurately and without question. We thank the hundreds of GEC staff, precinct officials, and volunteers. Now, where were the volunteers, Jose? I didn't know that we're using any volunteers in this process.
Precinct officials, right?
Well, party volunteers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that doesn't really count.
That's an obligation.
Well, it's a charter.
A charter.
A charter. The party says we designate you as the Democratic poll watcher to go to precinct whatever it is at village so-and-so and make sure there's no chicanery going on there. But I suppose in a sense they have a role in keeping things honest, but not very much, really. Not like the folks that are drawing $350 for a long Saturday to do it. That's pretty good pay.
I like how they announce my name to everybody.
Yeah. Well,
so it makes you feel important.
Yeah, well, of course, in your case, it's really not necessary.
Okay.
Everybody knows Jose Martinez, the producer for Tall Tales.
Just my beard.
True. We thank the hundreds of GEC staff, precinct officials, and volunteers who helped keep precinct operations, especially curbside voting for our Manamco and disabled citizens, running smoothly from Dedido to Moleso. Well, that's kind of a left-handed compliment, isn't it? So the things didn't run very smoothly up in Zigo, huh?
Nope.
Ah. Dedido to Malesu. And securely back to the election central at the university for the final tabulation. The grueling operation requires the utmost attention to detail and extreme circumstances, despite the side effects of the sleep deprivation that may set in as the sun rises and the last of the ballots are counted. Saturday's primary was just the first round as our candidates gear up for November 8 general election, the final and traditionally more intense round where voters will decide who will lead Guam in the years ahead. Make your voice count. Be part of that election process. Find out more about how to register, et cetera, et cetera. Well, yeah, I can't say I'm really crazy about the way they dissed Jigo in this process, because I voted Jigo. I've been voting in Jigo since 1975, and it went well. The only criticism I had was that they could have marked the doorway. I had to actually ask some, there are a lot of doorways and a lot of people in and out. I had to actually somebody, where do I go to vote? And there was a sign, about a 4-by-8-inch sign beside the door alongside the one that said boys A through Z. And I was wondering, are they letting, the kids come up here and vote?
I don't think you would have had to duck to go through that door.
Yeah.
Which one did you have to go to? There's two of them in Jigo or more than?
There's I think it's J.L. Paris Elementary and F.B. Leon Grove Junior High, or middle school. That's where I went, yeah. K, So, the election was an election just like every other one. I'd say very smooth. And, if it's done properly, you really don't need skillful volunteers. It's because because of the division of labor and separation, one person will say, "Good afternoon, could I have a photo ID?" She looks for you in the roster, finds your name, you sign, they draw a line through it, they give it back to you. Somebody else gives you the ballot, etc. So none of the paid people that come in have to know more than a single task. And it ran very smoothly, I'll give it that, and the counting was done pretty well. But I have to give credit to where credit is due here. Maria Pangilinan is the best director of the Election Commission we have ever had.
That's true.
Yeah, now I don't want this to be taken away, but Maria is indeed a goat. That doesn't mean she's got two horns sticking out of her head. It means she is greatest of all time. Whoever takes after Maria, you're going to have a heavy burden because there's going to be comparisons with you and her. She really does a fantastic job over there. I just wish that Maria could be cloned. We could use Maria's in a lot more agencies than the one where she is. Okay, so much for Demi Cotney. Let's take a look at the card for today. And of course, right after the big halftime show, we have one of the really interesting features of Tall Tales. It's called Hope Cristobal's Screen Test. And if you haven't seen it before, it's Hope Cristobal being harassed by Paul Zerzan. It's just a terrible case of harassment. It's even worse than Tello Taitigui harassing Tom Shea, if you haven't seen that one. I'm surprised Tom didn't. Have you seen it, Jose?
I've seen bits of it. I haven't seen the full.
I'm just surprised Tom didn't call the cops. What's that?
Supposed to tell it to Tello.
Yeah.
He told it.
Yeah, well, I mean, let me say this again. You know, it was so bad, Jose, that Tello harassed Tom so much. I'm surprised Tom didn't call the cops. Yeah, I'm surprised Tello didn't call the cops. All right, so we've got. We start out here with Hope Screen Test. We've got 36-34 portion of the show. I think we'll skip AFB, Anderson Air Force Base versus the Stranger. We know it's Matt Topaznia. I really wish someone would come forward here and tell me why Matt Topaznia was on the apron up at the airport when Nancy came in and shook and howdied with the governor and lieutenant governor. What the hell was Matt Topaznia doing there? If you could give me some insight into that, I would even let you have a soapbox here on Tall Tales. I'm that interested. Okay, we've got the Daily Post versus Michael San Nicolas, which is going to be pretty short today. Oh, I've got the wrong calendar. I grabbed the wrong calendar, Jose. Can you print it out real quick for me?
Oh, I don't think I have one either.
I didn't mail it to you? Whoa. Okay, I'll have to do it the old-fashioned way then. I've got Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. I've got, I have it. It was just covered up by systemic racism. Yeah, so I've got Hope Screen Test. I've got Repeat versus Leavin' in January. It's a recording. But I understand because of technical difficulties, we'll have to hang on to that.
No, we could do that one, and we're not going to be able to do the screen test today.
All right. It's one or the other?
Yeah, it's
I
one or
have
the
to
other.
decide, huh?
You have to decide.
All right. We'll do the screen test tomorrow, and we'll do Repeat versus Leavin' in January, because it leads in nicely into my election analysis. I'm going to start with the Attorney General's, the Office of the Attorney General. Then we've got Aperon versus the Archdiocese of Agania. And then we've got Camerlin Caridot versus the Archdiocese of Agania, which is almost the same thing. We've got French versus Garland. This is not dealing with our friend Frenchie. This is David French. Solomons versus the United States, Christian versus transgenderism. I'll finish up on LGB versus T. I don't think I'll get that far, but some really interesting stuff for today. Of course, we all are familiar with systemic racism, the agenda. The rice is red. Anybody who comes along and says it's orange doesn't understand that the agenda trumps the truth, the facts, and reality. That's a lesson we've learned here in the 21st century. And I go on from there to let's see. Yeah, the Daily Post versus Michael San Nicolas. Well, it's kind of like when Richard Nixon ran for governor of California and was defeated. And it was the second time he lost. And Nixon had always had a contentious relationship with the press. He was not their kind of guy. He didn't go to an Ivy League school. He didn't go to an Ivy League law school. His parents were not part of the monoculo in the Republican establishment. He was just a common, ordinary, everyday kind of guy who was very, very smart, very ambitious, and a very good worker, and an extremely good strategic thinker. All things that the Democrats hate, especially the hard-working part, right? So he was able to carve out a pretty good sized niche for himself in California politics. But it was kind of like the Post versus Michael San Nicolas. So when he lost in the race for governor of California, some reporter said, well, what can you tell us? Is there anything good coming out of this, Richard Nixon? And Nixon said, yeah, it won't have Nixon to kick around anymore.
That's a quote.
That is a quote.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that dogged him for the rest of his political career, as things like that do.
Lots of people tried.
They tried, and they finally made it. So that's what you get. It's called a gaffe. You know, when a politician opens his mouth and says something that he actually believes and is true, that's called a gaffe, because he didn't engage in political speak. Okay, I've got what Levin could have done here, keeping it handy, just to remind you that Levin came out and said that Bell's Law was dead on arrival. It's void ab initio. And what Levin could have done gets you into the resurrection outlined in the Indiana rule. But I'll get back into that a little bit more when we get to the election analysis. So, can we start out with repeat versus Levin? Oh, wait a minute. I've got to go through my clippings here first. Once again, I've got the clipping for the Gita agenda. Eisenhower. Slow down, Bob. Here, let's start all over. Let's take a mulligan here, right? Yeah, I've got the agenda for the Ethics Commission, and they have invented closed proceedings, not an executive session, but a closed proceeding, and then they list the style of several cases that are apparently pending before them. My sense is if they want to do that and they don't want the public present, they've got to go into executive session. They think that they can just use the term closed proceeding, which doesn't exist in statute, and they're okay. They will get away with this right up until the time that they slam somebody who will challenge the slamming and say, you guys broke the open government law. Everything you did was void. But there's something else really interesting in the agenda here. New business. Review and act on rescinding of the Guam Ethics Commission's proposed rules and regulations transmitted for review on July 29, 2022 to the Office of Governor and the Office of Attorney General. So July 29 is today. So they're going to send it today, and then they want to, at their next meeting, which will be August 31. I'm sorry, July 29 was a month ago. This is August already. Wow, still August 29. Okay, so apparently on July 29. Apparently, they went into the rules and regulations procedure, our so-called administrative adjudication law, came up with rules, sent them to the Attorney General and the Governor on July 29. Now, they on the next meeting, which will be August 31, they want to discuss the rescission of those rules and regulations. So apparently, they made a mistake. Or maybe they acted unethically. If I get around to it, I'll sunshine one of those rules and regulations, which they'll have some excuse for not sending me, I'm sure. And then B, review and act on Resolution 22-02 relative to the approval of proposed rules and regulations governing the administration of the Guam Ethics Commission relating to standards of conduct under 4 GCA Chapter 15 as amended. This doesn't sound very good either. The statute's pretty clear as far as the standards of conduct are concerned. The Ethics Commission got off to a really horrible start. But now that they're up and running, they haven't got any better at all. Then we have a notice of public hearing from the public health folks, and this is what they're going to tell us. And I didn't see anything like this for the Ethics Commission. There's a statutory citation, and then they say, The Department of Public Health and Social Service will be accepting public comments on the promulgation of rules and regulations governing the following: barber and beauty shops, cosmetology schools, and nail salons. So they're going to go into the administrative adjudication law process to come up with rules for barber, beauty, cosmetology, and nail salons. You know, I hope they do a really good job here, because you know what, Jose? These barber shops, I can tell you this from personal experience, a lot of them are clip joints. Where's that rim shot, Jose? That's better. Yeah, okay, now, Civil Service Commission. New business. Mini Hatch Act Assessment Report Hearing. Gina Call versus Department of Education. Now, we have a Gina Call who is a tailgater, right? Yeah, so Gina, best of luck. If you want to share any part of this with us, we're all ears, especially me. And then Talina Nelson, I guess, you know, a little late. She's having a public hearing on September 6th on some real dynamite here. 2 resolutions. Resolution 346 relative to expressing the utmost support of Emina Trentai-Sais, 36 Wembley, for the passage of H.R. 6823, the Elizabeth Dole Home and Community-Based Services for nonsense, something nobody ever heard of. And then 348, you got to wonder what happened to 344, 5, 6, and 7, relative to requesting the Department of Education to incorporate financial literacy into its high school curriculum as a standalone course and require successful completion of the course as a graduation prerequisite beginning with school year 23-24. That's all I could say. I just sigh. And then the port again is for their August 30 meeting is made the old business error. And that's it for the 34 portion of the agenda. And now let's hear what Repeat has to say about. Hang on just a second, Jose. See if I can find my list. Okay, yeah.
Family, the rock of society. The Camacho-Ada gubernatorial team believes that strong and stable families are crucial for strong and stable communities. Felix and Tony will provide better government resources for effective parenting, family engagement, and family caregiving for our seniors. They know what the breakdown of the family unit has done to our community and will promote measures designed to maintain and strengthen the family as the fundamental unit of society.
I'm Felix Camacho, and I approve this message.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spittin' truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Okay, so here we go. We're last Friday, Repeat called in and had some really cogent things to say about leaving in January, our current Attorney General. Jose, over the weekend, it was Thursday, excuse me. Jose, over the weekend, was able to edit that tape and cut it into smaller pieces because I think, once again, this time there was no necessity for Pete to repeat because he got it right the first time. So we're going to give you some bits and pieces of what Repeat said. Let's start out with number 6, Jose. So, Pete, would you blame this on the fact that we're just hiring incompetent assistant attorneys general, or is there some other explanation that you could provide for this horrible record?
Well, what normally happens is you have a stable of competent AGs, assistant AGs, to teach the newbies that are coming in and show them the ropes. But it's gotten so bad that, everyone has fled, and so now all the newbies are basically left holding the bag.
Okay, let's go from there to number 1, Jose.
Able to listen earlier because I was stuck in MAGI hearings, but true to form, we had 2 cases assigned to us, and I got both of them dismissed for lack of probable cause. And this is another symptom of this current AG, not caring about what's going on in the prosecution division. This is not the first time. In recent weeks, I've been getting the magistrate complaints dismissed here and there. And then just last week, I wrapped up a trial. It didn't get a lot of press because there's a lot of higher profile trials going on, but we had a serious first-degree felony case that went to trial, and my client got acquitted on all counts. And that's just because the AGs just, for lack of a better word, don't know what they're doing.
Let's go to number 4, Jose. In the ordinary course of business, when you have capable prosecutors, how often is a case dismissed by the magistrate for lack of probable cause?
I've seen it go for almost a year without getting, without having anything dismissed.
Yeah.
But now I've been seeing them they're running at probably 30 to 40% of the magistrate complaints are getting dismissed.
Whoa.
Like I said, in the past few weeks, I've had at least 3 or 4, and then just today I had 2.
That is really scary. So these are magistrates that, in a sense, are, if you've been able to do a dozen of them, you should have it pretty well down pat. Not the hardest thing that a prosecutor does, but if they're screwing,
no, it's not.
If they're screwing up the misdemeanors that bad, what are they doing with the felonies?
Well, one of my dismissals today was a felony, a second-degree felony.
So there you have it, Pete Santos, a former prosecutor who left the prosecution division of the Attorney General's office to go to the alternate public defender. And he called once upon a time when there was a certain amount of kvetching going on about leaving in January, and said, well, the defense bar really likes it because we're really able to fatten up our one-loss record. They're winning cases that they know they shouldn't be able to win. Pete even got to the point where he said, this is too much as a citizen. Okay, so from there we're going to go to the election results. And we're going to start out with what I think is by far the most important result of the election, this primary election. Now, we have a nonpartisan attorney general. We elect our attorney general, but our attorneys general candidates don't run as Democrats or Republicans. They run as candidates, and that's it. And the way the primary is set up, the primary is not a partisan primary. It's just to limit the number of choices on the general election ballot. So the top 2 vote getters in the primary advance to the general election. So I think that when I think when Doug ran the first time, there were 3 candidates, 2 advanced to the general election ballot. If you had 10 candidates, 2 would advance to the general election ballot. This time we only had 2, Doug Moylan and Levin in January, so both advanced to the general election ballot. Now, the results tell you something here. Levin in January got 11,285 votes. And he got more votes than Doug Moylan. Surprise, surprise. Doug Moylan got 10,967 votes. I have to count this as a tremendous victory for Doug Moylan, not for Levin in January. Because, among other things, Doug has been out of the picture for a while. There are some that perhaps still remember Doug and say, I don't want that guy again. Not very many, but there's some. But he has not been in the spotlight very often in the last few years. He's not an incumbent. An incumbent has a tremendous advantage in any election, an incumbent against a challenger. But Levin on a jet plane just barely got more votes than Doug did, far less than 1%. So if that's the best he can do, then my sense is this, that the 10,967 people that didn't vote for Doug, didn't vote for Levin in January, voted against the incumbent. They voted against Levin Camacho. That's why Doug got so many votes. And, he got some because he's Doug Moylan, and he got some because, he knows where 93.3 is on the radio dial, unlike Levin in January. But I would say that's the crest of the wave that Doug can ride in on into the general the election, and I think he could beat Levin by a couple thousand votes. Because and then Levin came out with a statement, and if you are the incumbent, you don't attack the challenger. You don't spend any time rebutting what the challenger says about you. Because as I mentioned before, one of the conventions in politics is that if you have a credible message, and you are a credible messenger and you get your message out, your chances of being elected are pretty darn good. Well, Levin is not a credible messenger. I don't think he has a very high credibility ranking amongst the community. I don't know what his message is, other than he likes to participate, he likes to sign on in class actions. But he did not campaign on his record. He did not come forward with statistics and say, I sent, the sum total of people I sent to prison is 10,422 years, 3 months, 4 days, and 2 hours. He didn't campaign on his record at all. He just campaigned on, I'm leaving Camacho, I'm the Attorney General. So if he spends time rebutting what Doug Moylan says about him, Doug is successful because he's taken Levin off the message that Levin doesn't even have. When folks are expecting him to campaign on his record. And then Levin really let one of a very large cat out of the bag. And by the way, that expression, cat out of the bag, when you hear that, you're thinking, meow, meow, right? That's not where the expression came from. A little parenthetical knowledge here on Tall Tales. Aboard ship back in the old days, when disobedient sailors were punished by lashes with a cat of 9 tails. That was bread and water.
That hurts.
Yeah, cat of 9 tails. Well, the cat of 9 tails was kept in a bag. So somebody screwed up and he got punished. Yeah, the captain let the cat out of the bag yesterday. Poor old Swenson, man, he got 4 lashes with the cat. Anyhow, Levin let the cat out of the bag here in his post-election statement when he was criticizing Moylan, just like I said, instead of telling about the record. And instead of repeating his message, he comes back and tries to rebut Moylan. And here's what he said. Camacho went on to reference Moylan's stand on abortion. Now Doug wants to enforce a statute that makes it a crime for women and young girls who seek abortions, even in situations of rape and incest. Now, let me just call a timeout here, right? And there may be, it's possible there may be tailgaters out there that are pro-abortion. There may be, you know, I don't want to get into that. I don't think I have to. I think you know where I stand on that. What I want to do is talk about a public office holder, his own personal views, and the performance of his duties, okay? Now, obviously, the cat that Levin let out of the bag here is he doesn't like anti-abortion laws. He does not like Bell's law. So when he had a chance to do something with it, this is what he did. Scenario A, he researched the law. He found authority for the proposition that when a statute is enacted contrary to constitutional law, the statute is void ab initio, which means from the beginning. He stopped. He stopped there. Just like my friend who helped me look for my keys that I dropped out in front of his poorly lit house, and he went down and looked under the streetlight for my keys. And when I said, "Why are you looking for my keys down there? I lost them over here by my car." My friend said, "Yeah, but the light is so much better here." That's kind of the Levin approach. So he found what he was looking for. He found a way to say that statute is void. What did he do then? He stopped looking. And I showed you in my column, and I've read it on the air a couple times, all you got to do is type in the words effect of an unconstitutional statute in the Google search bar, and you'll come up with an ancient University of, what state was it? Indiana, yeah. Law review article, and there's a section in there that says the Indiana rule is that in that particular situation, if the Supreme Court reverses the decision that caused the statutory infirmity, then the statute is resurrected and becomes the law again. Now, if I could find that like that, where was Levin? He had a responsibility to cite that law review article. If it's still a law, then he has to go forward and move to dissolve the permanent injunction against Bell's law. If it's not still good law, then he needs to explain why it's not good law. But had he gone forward to dissolve the injunction on Bell's law, he'd have been off the hook. If Francis ruled against him, well, I did my best. I did the job of an attorney general, of an advocate. I defended the statute of my jurisdiction. Too hard.
We're seeing that with AGs all across the country, just deciding which laws they want to decide to uphold.
Exactly. So the point I want to make here is that we don't want public officials in that kind of a position who say, well, see, this is what I really want. I will go into the books to find some authority to make it come out the way I want it to come out. And if I can, I won't pay any attention to the rest. That's not what you want from your attorney general. You know, we got to check the campaign records and see how much money Levin in January got from George Soros, who's been buying all of these attorneys general and district attorneys in the states who think it's the job of the DA or the attorney general to not prosecute crimes. So to me, you know, when Levin does this and then comes back and uses it as part of his campaign, he's tipped his hat. He's pulled down his mask and told us, as the chief law enforcement for this officer, I'm pro-abortion, and you can count on me, guys.
Which really isn't an attorney general issue, which is really surprising also on that level, is that we're more interested in an AG who is going to uphold the laws of the land. not who is going to give us his opinion on the laws of the land, or else go run for Senate.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, if you're a senator and you want to enact a law that says parking spaces are too narrow because you had a hard time getting out of your car, we have a chance to deal with that every 2 years. Okay, so that's that's leaving. Leaving on a jet plane, leaving in January, I hope. Now, Doug has a really, really good chance of not only beating Levin, but beating him soundly. But Doug has told us, I'm not taking any money from anybody. You won't see any Doug Moylan signs around the island. You won't see any Doug Moylan commercials on TV. You won't hear any Doug Moylan commercials here on the Point because he's not going to advertise. Now, in a sense, that's the kind of thing that populists like. You know, we already have one candidate who figures, well, I'm going to buy this election, and all my supporters, you can just bank on that. Yeah. So Doug is saying, I'm going to put myself out there. I'll do the job. I've done it before. I know how to do it. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to take any money from anybody. I don't see this as a contest of who can spend the most money. I think that it is the most important ballot office on the ballot, even more important than the gubernatorial, because we could get a good governor, and the governor has no control over the attorney general, no control over prosecution whatsoever. And if we're going to go this, I like abortion, and we don't need no stinking 24 prosecutors in my office. I'd rather concentrate on the basketball team. We still need help under the board. So if anybody as tall as Klitzkie comes in, I'll hire him because I need a good rebound. Well, wait a minute. I didn't say that. I didn't mean that. That's where we're going with this. So let's take a short break, and I'm going to come back to Doug Moylan again.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the Point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Choosing health insurance for my family is difficult. I need to know our health insurance will protect us now and in the future. Take Care members have access to the island's largest offering of free fitness classes and health education programs, and a high-quality credentialed network of on- and off-island healthcare providers, including the convenient one-stop FHP Health Center and urgent care. My family choose Take Care. Your family should also consider choosing Take Care. Call 671-647-3526 for more information. Take Care, our island, your health plan.
Okay, I've got more to say about Doug Moylan. I've got a lot to say about the elections. I've got Frenchie on the line, and he says he's got some info on the mystery man. So I'm going to put Frenchie on the line now just to deal with the mystery man. And then we'll bring him back after I finish my analysis. We'll bring him back again later in the program. So tell me about the mystery man, Frenchie.
Well, yeah. I found out that why Mr. Topasna was there at the airport, and it's because apparently Josh is blind as a bat at night, which would make sense for bats because they usually get out at night. But Josh has a tough time driving himself in the dark, and we know he's deaf to a lot of suggestions. So I guess his skinnier half is the one that drives at nights, and that's why he ended up at the airport.
His
because
what?
Josh cannot drive himself.
His what, Frenchie?
His skinnier half.
Skinny.
he's more skinny than Josh. Josh is more meaty, and his partner is more skinny.
Oh, the skinny man. Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
the skinny man.
So the skinny
Well,
Matt
he's not that skinny, but compared to
Topaznia is Josh's nighttime driver, as well as being the skinny man around the house. Is that it?
That's right. That's
Well,
right.
you
So
know, the
that's-
governor and the lieutenant governor are usually ferried about in large limos with police officers as drivers. Doesn't Josh rate something like that during the evening?
Well, I don't know if Josh fits in the limos. He might need a pickup truck, so that's why.
I see. Well, and then if that were the case, I don't know that much about protocol, but I suspect that the governor had a driver. I didn't see her driver out there in the tarmac with Nancy and the monocular.
Yeah, he might have been the one taking the pictures.
Okay. Well, thanks for helping us out with that, Frenchie. We'll come back to you later on in the show, okay?
All right. I will call later.
Thanks. Yeah, so Matt Topaznia is the skinny man around Josh's house, and he is Josh's nighttime driver. Are they dissing Josh by not giving him a police officer as a driver? And are they kind of elevating the position of nighttime driver, because apparently the nighttime driver not only sits behind the wheel, but when there is a shake and howdy with important people, the nighttime driver is part of that too.
Well, the Green Hornet had Cato.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But I don't think he was on the flight line shaking hands with Cato. I mean, with the Green Hornet.
Probably not. Okay, so back to Moylan versus leaving in January. Doug has got a really good chance of winning, but as I mentioned, he's not taking any campaign contributions. He's not spending any money on a campaign. He's getting as much earned media as he can. So there's only one group that he can really rely on. That's us. That is us. As I said, this is the most important race on the ballot come November. So every tailgater out there, I beseech, request, Sangani, Faison, however you want to say it, Hamza Todus, talk to your friends. Make a sign that says Moylan for AG and put it on your front fence. Put a sign in your window. Do whatever you can to help Doug Moylan get over the top on this one. I don't think we can handle 4 more years of leaving in January. We're at the rate he's going, the half-life of a prosecutor is what, 4 or 5 months or something like that. We're going to be down to 0 prosecutors. Okay, so much for that part of the agenda. And then going on to another part of the agenda, going up to, I'm going to start out with this, the election in general. And obviously, there were an awful lot of folks that voted for Republicans, as you were voted for Democrats. More than likely, Republican raiders came over and voted on the other side. When we look at the gubernatorial, Felix got 2,963 votes. Lourdes Leon Guerrero got 8,044 votes. And Michael San Nicolas, who hardly campaigned, who almost disappeared during the last 3 months of the campaign, who had a ferocious a reconstituted Guam Daily Post on his tail, had that downside of the Congressional Ethics Committee's kangaroo court hanging over him all the time. And it kind of looked like from the sidelines, he just said, I'll go through the motions. I'll get to the end of this. And my analysis, maybe his heart just wasn't in it. But even so, Michael San Nicolas got 5,178 votes. Now, I think a lot of those, if not all of them, came from the Republican side of the ballot, because you remember Lou spent almost $1 million. Michael didn't even spend $100,000. So if you add the Michael San Nicolas votes, 5,178, to the Felix Camacho votes, 2,963, you come out with 8,141, which is a lot closer than, what Felix polled in the Republican primary. So once again, Republicans will vote for the Republicans in the general. I don't think Felix runs the risk of losing a single Republican because of an unforced error or because any of the black arts that might come from the Leon Guerrero campaign. I don't think Felix will lose a vote. I think Felix has a really, really good chance of picking up San Nicolas votes. And I even detected what could be read as a signal. Sabrina Salas Montanani gave her farewell address, so to speak, her statement after the votes were counted. And let's see, where is that? Sabrina, had a nice flower statement. I never thought I would run for public office. I finally figured out I had to. It was tough. It was an honor. Mike's a great guy, etc. Nothing really unexpected, but she wound up with this one sentence. To our people, make your vote count in November because the fight continues. I love you, Guam. I'm going to read that sentence again. To our people, make your vote count in November because the fight continues. I love you, Guam. All right, let's break for the big halftime show. We're going to have the Hope Show after. No Hope Show either, huh? Okay, we'll come back to the election right after the halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Lots of commotion. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. President Biden unveiled his student loan forgiveness plan this past week, which will allow up to $20,000 in student loan debt to be erased. Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont talks about why the plan is so vital on ABC's This Week.
I was in Boston last week and I was talking to nurses, and these nurses were telling me they are working in some cases 2 jobs, partly in order to pay for the student debts that they have accumulated.
Critics of the plan say it will worsen the inflation crisis. Missouri Republican Senator Roy Blunt, also on ABC's This Week, discusses what's wrong with the plan.
I just thought it was monumentally unfair to people who didn't go to college because they didn't think they could afford it, unfair to people who had paid their loans back, unfair to people who got higher education in an area that the government didn't make loans, just bad economics in addition to that.
A Florida federal judge says she is leaning towards granting former President Trump's request for an independent official to review the documents taken from his Mar-a-Lago home during the FBI raid. Fox's Jackie Ibanez has more.
A hearing this week will decide whether a special master will review those documents. A federal judge has signaled her intent to make that appointment, but there's been no final decision yet. A hearing on the matter is set for Thursday. It comes at the request of Trump's legal team.
NASA's unmanned Artemis 1 is still scheduled to test launch Monday morning, despite dealing with some nasty weather Saturday. Fox's Colonel Scott has more.
Storms around Cape Canaveral Saturday produced lightning that hit the launch vehicle. NASA's senior launch director Jeff Spaulding said after an assessment of those strikes,
everything to date looks very good from a vehicle perspective.
If all goes well, a moon landing could happen in 2025.
America is listening to Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
A man evicted from his apartment, killing 3 other tenants in Houston, Texas, early Sunday. Fox's Alexis McAdams has the report.
Houston police say so far that the gunman did this intentionally, first lighting the building on fire, then waiting for these people to run out so he could shoot them.
This suspect, unfortunately, and very sadly and very evilly, set fire to several residents, laid wait for those residents to come out and fired upon them.
It happened in Houston, Texas, on the city's southwest side. Officials say the first 911 call alerted them to a person down, then a fire inside of that building. But then there was gunfire in the parking lot of that building. The Houston Fire Department arrived first to battle the flames, but the suspect started shooting.
Houston police say they shot and killed the suspect, who was dressed in all black and holding a shotgun. A baseball card featuring Hall of Famer Mickey Mantle sells for a record price. Fox's Kevin Uretsky has the details.
A mint condition 1952 Mantle baseball card sold for $12.6 million at auction Saturday night, becoming the most expensive piece of sports memorabilia ever sold. The card beat out the $9.3 million spent just a few months ago for the jersey worn by soccer legend Diego Maradona when he scored the famous Hand of God goal. The Mantle card also shattered the previous record for a trading card, beating out the $7.25 million spent on a Honus Wagner card from the early 1900s.
With the midterm elections looming, Democratic National Committee Chair Jamie Harrison tells CBS's Face the Nation that there is a good possibility that Democrats will keep their majority control of Congress.
The Democrats are going to keep their majorities in the House, that they're going to grow the majorities in the United States Senate, and we're going to pick up some governor's mansions along the way.
Republicans say their chances appear strong due to the current state of the economy. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News.
The Super American Circus is here, and Circle K is giving away free Circus Kids tickets. Drop by your closest Circle K location and get up to 4 tickets absolutely free. So come one, come all, and enjoy free tickets to the greatest show on Island today. Circle K, take it easy. Ticket is valid for kids 12 years old or younger with purchase of preferred tickets.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Okay, so here we are, second half of Tall Tales after another great halftime show put on here by our producer, Jose. I don't know how you do it, Jose. Day after day, you continually top your last performance. So we were talking about the elections and Doug Moylan and how I think his election is so important. And I gave you some idea of how important the role of tailgaters is in this election. And that is that tailgaters could make sure that Doug goes over the top. Talk to your friends, talk to your relatives, talk to your enemies, talk to anybody you can get to listen about how important it is that leaving in January does leave in January because he lost. Okay, I talked a little bit about the gubernatorial, about how it broke down between the Leon Guerrero team and the San Nicolas team as far as Felix is concerned. Felix has got his work cut out for him. There's just no getting around that. Obviously, Lou is going to have more money to spend. Lou is the incumbent, and an incumbent always has an advantage going into a general election. Felix carries that load that some folks are saying, well, you know, he had his chance. Why doesn't he let somebody else have a chance? Second thing is the way it's gone before. No governor running for re-election has lost since since Paul Calvo. And Paul Calvo was a little different because he changed horses in the middle of the stream. His running mate the first time around was Joe Atta, second time around it was Pete Paris. But the norm is that governors are usually reelected. This governor, you know, if you wanted to write a book and you were looking for raw material, you could write a book just about all of the really dumb things, bad things, and stupid things that this governor has done. For me, the roadblock out there in Marine Corps Drive tops anything I'd ever seen in all the years, and it'll be 60 years next year that I've been watching Guam politics. How anyone could think that stopping all traffic on Marine Corps Drive so that a National Guardsman can come and talk to you and tell you to wash your hands, keep your distance, and wear your mask. You know, I mean, it obviously had no disease prevention dimension, absolutely, because I don't think the COVID virus, the Wuhan virus, the Chinese virus paid any attention to those National Guardsmen at all. But politically, it was as dumb a thing as you could imagine. It was a gigantic inconvenience. No one could see the sense in it. It was purposeless. And those who were looking for a motive just saw it as just one more aspect of the reason that the governor is known as the Red Queen here on the show. She likes to have dictatorial powers. You have no say. Everybody's seen that tape. So Felix has got to really take the gloves off, and he's got to challenge the governor on all of the dumb things that she did. Now, you know, he's not going to be able to challenge her on all of them because he's only going to have 2 months. You really need 2 years to do a complete challenge. But that's where Felix's success lies. He's got to provide a contrast between all of the horrible things that we had to put up with under Governor Leon Guerrero and the much brighter picture that he'll paint about a Camacho administration. If he does that, and if he can get the mechanisms of his campaign functioning properly, he can win. But he's not the favorite right now, that's for sure. 538 is not going to rate him as the favorite, nor would, pardon the expression, Nick the Greek. Yeah. Okay, so that's that particular race. I go next to Washington Rep. I was hoping that Talina would beat Judy Wonpat 10. although Talina is not a strong candidate at all. And I've been through the story about Talina and Bill 82, the old Superior Court case she cited and apparently never read. So she's a weak candidate at best, but she's anti-abortion. I don't know where Juan Pat-10 is on abortion. I don't even have a suspicion. But I do know this about Juan Pat-10. She's an oikophobe. She hates her country. She hates the United States. She's anti-military. She hasn't come out and confessed, but I think she's pro-independence. She's part of that nationalist strain, signs up with the eco-fascists, etc. The last person that we want to have representing us in the House of Representatives, when we have the opportunity to make some real gains, and we make real gains like this. By now, the awareness of Guam has increased dramatically because people in the mainland and the 50 states know that we are the front lines. We're the FIBA, the forward edge of the battle area here when it comes to China and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. So we ought to wear that like a badge when we're in Congress. We ought to say, she ought to stand up and say, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the people of Guam, which I want to remind you are the forward edge of the American defense of the 50 states of this great country, etc. And she ought to be saying things like that all the time so that people recognize that what we're doing is defending them back there. Juan Pat's campaign Juan Pat's campaign literature uses this word, which is just dumb: leverage. We need to leverage our position. Yeah, when you're one out of a 0 out of 535, you got a lot of leverage. So the way to gain some leverage is to piss them off as much as you can by telling them, you're not doing the right thing by Guam. We were colonized 1 million years ago. You don't care about all the rest of this stuff. It just isn't going to get you anywhere. What you want to do is remind people of how important Guam is to the defense of the country. And then because Guam is important to the defense of the country, the better Guam is doing, the better the country is doing. But she won't do that. You can tell by the way she's campaigning, the interview that she had on Pacific Island Times. She is not pro-American. She is an oikophobe. Let's exercise our leverage, she said. She beat Nelson pretty handily. But of course, we know that political office, and if we had forgotten, Juan Pat-10 reminded us, political office in Guam is hereditary. We have these elections to make people feel good. But the first sentence in her campaign was, I learned a lot from my father, who was our first Washington delegate and was Speaker of the legislature. So I come from political royalty, folks, in case you've forgotten. Therefore, when it comes to Washington delegate, how can you even think about somebody else? Now, Nelson herself comes from political, maybe not royalty, nobility, because her grandpa rose to the level of vice speaker at one time, but nowhere near the clout that Juan Pat-10 has because of her father. And I suspect that's played a large role in some of the votes that Juan Pat-10 got. We're going to be cursed with this idea of political royalty until we get a part-time legislature where some common, ordinary, workaday folks who are not part of the political establishment can run for the legislature, win, and show you what a real legislature looks like. That's the only way that we're going to break the, wasn't his father a senator? Shouldn't we vote for him? Wasn't her father a Washington delegate. I think she probably knows a lot from her father. We have to break that. So going into the general, we've got James Moylan, which repeat has told us is actually a pejorative. It's a label you hang on someone who doesn't have a whole lot of G2 in his brain housing group. Jim is, again, political royalty. The name Moylan is like Cadillac as far as politics is concerned. Kurt Moylan was the last Secretary of Guam, functional equivalent of Lieutenant Governor. Kurt Moylan was the first elected Lieutenant Governor of Guam. Kurt Moylan was the youngest person ever elected to the legislature when he was 25. Yeah, and whenever Kurt ran for the legislature, he always did very well. He ran for governor. He made a respectable showing. He didn't win. So Jim has that going for him. The persona of Jim, he has part of the persona that is good for a politician who's doing retail campaigning. No one would ever be threatened by Jim, even Tom Shea. Tom Shea would never accuse Jim of bullying. He's a soft-spoken, friendly, likable guy who gives you the sense that he is interested in you and interested in what he's trying to do. On the other side, he doesn't have that go-for-the-juggler instinct that in politics of today, if not forever, you kind of need when you're out there, when you're going head-to-head against somebody who probably starts out as the favorite because she's a higher degree of royalty than Jim is. But once again, I think Jim is our only hope, unless you want to send someone to the U.S. Congress who will take every opportunity that she can to badmouth the U.S. Congress because they haven't been kind to Guam. Then we have the senatorial races. There was a hotly contested race on the Republican side, and when the dust finally settled, 15 candidates were able to beat Harvey Egna. Pretty dynamic results there. But we talked to Harvey before, and I gave him the Cliff Notes version of how to be a successful candidate. Harvey started too late, and I think it was you that suggested, Jose, that his campaign now ought to be seen as a foundation for 2024. And he needs to go to work right now. He needs to work on presidents, name ID, identity, so that people say, Harvey Egna, is that good with bacon? You know, and the fact that your name is Harvey Egna does not stop you from running. You know, there's a suspicion, Zangini, tomorrow, electa pari legislatura. It's not so. You don't have to be Chamorro to get elected to the legislature.
You're going to name one winner on the list there. That's not Chamorro.
Exactly. And in the 28th Guam legislature, 5 of the senators were not Chamorros, 33%, even though only about 7% of the electorate is non-Chamorro. So it is possible. You can even have a name that's hard to spell and hard to remember, like Klitzkie. You can still get elected with a cockeyed name like that. But you got to get your name out there in front of the people, and you can't wait until you turn your papers in and then figure you call a few talk shows and you're going to make it. It's not going to happen. It took Chris Duenas 3 cracks at it. He went to the plate 3 times. I think he was called out on strike every time. The 4th time was a charm. He got elected. And now Chris is very electable. He lost and he came back, and that takes some doing. And he's the strength of the minority right now. So that's how it turned out for the Republicans. 15 victors there. Harvey Egna is the anchor man. For the Democrats, let's see, there were 21 candidates, 15 got elected, so 6 didn't make the cut. That was Roy Gamboa. Well, Roy has this consolation. I suspect the lieutenant governor will welcome him back with open arms and make sure that nobody is appointed to the Civil Service Commission, so Roy won't have to take a hit for violating the Hatch Act. Alexander Duenas didn't make the cut. Once again, Alexander Duenas. Who is Alexander Duenas? John Ananich II. Second time around for John. I think he finished lower this time. I think he was like 17th last time. He finished lower this time. Dave Duenas, a perennial 19th. Franklin Mano, also known as Bunker, 4,910 votes. And then Armando Dominguez, the anchor man on the Democrat side. And I can't remember how many times Armando has run, but you don't need to explain the rules to Armando. Maybe 5 different times, yeah. And he hasn't made it yet. Maybe he just likes to campaign. And I got to tell you, if you really get into it, if you're looking for fun, campaigning is more fun than actually serving in the legislature, which isn't, if you're looking for something that's fun, enjoyable, no, that's not serving. Interesting, yes. But being running a successful campaign, very interesting, etc.
I have a question, though, on Roy. Is it Roy Kanata or Roy Gamboa who worked in the lieutenant governor's?
Roy Gamboa.
It was Gamboa then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kanata is there are 2 Roys. There's Roy Kanata and Roy Gamboa. Yeah. So I suspect that Kanata got all of the Roy votes that Gamboa didn't get. Who are you voting for? Oh, I'm going to vote for Roy. Yeah, okay, I will too, yeah. So now I'm going to go through and analyze and tell you how I think it's going to sort out in the general. So you look at the top of the general election ballot, you got Therese Terlahi. Obviously, Therese is right now perhaps our most successful elected public official. She finishes at the top of the legislative heap without spending $500,000 to do it. She doesn't spend a whole lot of money. She doesn't take bad raps from very many quarters. You have Darrell Chris Barnett, who finished second with 12,584 votes, which to me indicates a weakness on the Democrat side. I don't think that people are voting for Darrell Chris malfunction because he's a Democrat. I don't think they're voting for him because they like his politics. I think they're voting for him because they liked his show, Malfunction. He was a funny guy. He made you laugh. Like his routine that I can still remember. He calls King's Restaurant, right? He calls King's Restaurant. He says, I want fried rice, Allah, to go, but hold the Allah. And Kester says, how can you have fried rice Allah and not put the Allah on it? So that's what I want. and he strung it out, and he got a lot of laughs out of it.
And you know what? For those who are fans of Chris Barnett, this is not a slight. This is just a reality. He's never been a politician before.
Never has.
This is going to be his test, but this is what we know him for, malfunction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what he did was he would call somebody and tell him, I'm going to record this, and with your permission, I'll run it on the air as though it's a spontaneous call. And he got a lot of laughs on it. He was very funny. He's a very good talk show if you're looking for a lot of laughs. I never spent much time listening to his morning show with Sabrina, because I kind of got to listen to the point in case I got to do a cameo on the point. But I think the reason that he got as many votes as he did is because people liked him as a talk show host, which doesn't show you an awful lot of strength in the Democrat ticket. Joe San Augustine, third. Amanda Shelton, fourth. Tina Rose Munga Barnes. So those five, Terlahi, San Augustine, Shelton, and Barnes, show a lot of strength on the Democratic side of the ballot. So I think those five got a really good shot at getting in. Once again, as an example of the weakness of the Democrat ticket, Roy Kanata finished sixth. And what did Roy Kanata ever say, do, stand for, etc.? Nothing. I don't know if Roy Kanata ever had a job. I know he's a Democrat because it says D on his signs, which are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And Roy went on the air and saying, yeah, I got my signs out early. I got good locations, and I got big signs. Well, the way a person campaigns often is kind of a sample of the way he'll serve if he's elected. So if Roy is elected, I would expect he spend most of his time on sign regulations. But the fact that he could finish that high just based on signs, again, is a sign of weakness in the ticket. But he got more votes than Sabina Paris, the in-house eco-fascist. And once again, the fact that she finished behind him shows a weakness in the ticket. Then we get down into Will Parkinson. I don't see Will Parkinson as having much of a shot for it. Will Parkinson is running for the Green Party, the marijuana ticket, and also did his campaigning instead of on a fancy soundstage, did it out in the boonies. We've got Kelly Marsh Titano, who finished 10th, who barely made it in the first time around. Was the anchor man the last time around, only 10th this time. Kelly probably is going to have a lot of time on her hands after the general election. Pito Terlahi, when one of your committee chairs finished 10th, that's Pito, 12th, does not show much strength in your ticket. And then we have Jonathan Savaris, of course, who made a name for himself as part of the Blacklist 10. Angela Santos, 15. Roy, I already talked about Roy Gamboa. Alexander Duenas. Who in the world is Alexander Duenas? John Ananich. Dave Duenas. Bunker. And Armando Dominguez. So I see a possible 7 Democrats as having electoral dynamites. I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm going to say they've got a really good shot at it. All right, let's head for Wrigley Field, and I'll come back here and talk a little bit about Fred Berdalio.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all 3.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his smile team. Suite 119 in the East-West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his smile team.
They make smiles happen.
Okay, so here we are, back again with my analysis here. As soon as I finish my analysis, I've got Ron McNinch hanging out in the green room, and I suspect Frenchie is probably getting ready to put his finger on the telephone. But I'm going to give you a little analysis of the Republican side. Frank Blas and Chris Duenas finished at the top of the ticket. Again, Republican primary. Most of the Republicans went over and voted on the other side. The fact that they're 1 and 2, I think, shows some strength in the ticket. Joanne Brown is number 3, strength in the ticket. Jesse Lujan, former senator, coming on the comeback trail. And Mana Silva Tyrone, same thing, on the comeback trail, finished in the top 7, as did Tello. If Tom Shea will continue to pick on Tello, I think she's got a pretty good chance, because Tom Shea took a pretty good basket of political credibility, and he's been squandering it lately, and his little set-to with Tello did not do anything for his credibility at all. Tom Fisher, a newcomer, has spent a lot of money on campaign. His campaigns are effective. That's about as much as I could say about him. I think the real key on the Republican... Oh, and there's a guy named Vince Bora, who there was a rumor that he's running. And since he actually finished 9th, I guess he is running. The rest, David Cristostomo, Sandra So, Bistra, Yan Kotling, and Harvey, etc., out of the money, as is Ken Leon Guerrero. I'm afraid that my prediction about Ken Leon Guerrero was all too correct. And it's a pity, because I like what Ken does. I like people that take the time to know what the issues are and have the guts to speak out on the issue. But as far as electoral politics are concerned, Ken's lacking a couple of the essential elements. And I think that's the reason that he's down there at number 12 instead of up there in the top 8. I think the real key on the Democrat side is Shirley Sam Mabini Young, who has a part-time legislature message buried in her campaign stuff. Sam can't win because she used to be the director of labor, because she's got a formal education, because she was in the legislature once before. She needs some political dynamite, like going out and campaigning. Please vote for me. If you want a part-time legislature, vote for me. If we got a part-time legislature, I'll run for re-election. If not, I'm going to disappear into the woodwork. But running a standard campaign, I'm qualified, I'm this, I'm that, obviously doesn't work for you, Sam. That's why you're number 10. So as I see it right now, I see 7 strong Democrats. I see 7 strong Republicans. I see Shirley Sam Mabini Young as the key to a Republican victory. Okay, and let's see. I've got Frenchie on line 2. I've got Ron McNinch on line 1. So we got some really, I'm sure we're going to have some really interesting commentary from our callers, folks. So hang on. We'll take this up to the 7th inning stretch, and we'll wind up the show with these 2 callers, starting out with Ron McNinch. Go for it, Ron.
Hey, happy day, Senator. Happy day, Guam. Yeah, it's an exciting election, and you were mentioning Daryl Chris Barnett earlier. Of course, malfunction. I worked with him for like 3 or 4 years at KUAM, and I have to say he is, and I mean this very sincerely and absolutely, he's incredibly bright. He's not just funny. I mean, he's got a good policy head on his shoulders, and I was very surprised and impressed by that, because normally when people hear malfunction, they think it's just a funny guy. No, he actually has some very insightful and really he has a lot of depth in a lot of his views that he has.
But so, I got to go back to my analysis, Doc. What he has is invisible because all people see is the funny guy. He hasn't campaigned on any issues except coming out vehemently against a part-time legislature, which cost him probably some votes.
Sure.
So if you're really smart, you got to go down in your shoulder for policy, et cetera. And people don't know it. It's the tree falling in the forest.
Sure. No, I agree too. And I agree the same probably applies to Tom Fisher. I was really, in my conversations I've had with him, I've always been, he's the classic serious lawyer type, but he has a lot of good views in depth also. So those are just my two comments on the legislature. But in general, in terms of the legislative majority, I've got to say that they're, at least for the Republicans, they need to have a rally point. They need to have a cohesive vision that they articulate. The problem with electing 15 people at large is that there's no real direction that can be happened because they all fight with each other. That's the inherent thing about having an at-large group of 15 is that they're all competing against each other until they get themselves elected. And if luck happens with them, they have the majority, and then they have to develop their vision from there. And I think that I remember Mark Forbes and Tony Impinko, they didn't run the legislature that way. They had a vision. They had a direction that they wanted the legislature to go in. And I've seen some Democrats have similar approaches too, not in so much recent years. But I think the last real, and of course it was because we had 16 years of an executive who was Republican, but the last real Republican vision I've seen in the legislature happened with Mark Forbes, and then after that, and also former Governor Calvo, who was also the leader at that time, and then it declined from there, and that was the unfortunate part. And so I hope that an articulated vision will become more the norm than the exception for the Guam legislature, because I think they can get a lot more done.
Well, one of the things that Forbes orchestrated was he had all 15 Republican candidates in a line, and we had a verbal message, and each of us spoke probably 4 or 5 words of the message as we went down the line. It was powerful. I mean, it showed that we spoke with a single voice. And you're right, Forbes was good at coming up with some principles that everybody could understand that voting Republican stood for.
Right, and he actually followed many of the national, ideological principles of the Republican Party, which is something that neither party really does a lot today. They don't really follow, the where the whole party as a nation is going, and that's one of the downsides. I mean that for both, is that we tend to have people who circulate around personalities rather than in a science of ideas that influence our policymaking process.
It's very true. Of course, when it comes to national politics, the local Democrats are pretty close to the nationals on the issue of abortion, which is the issue for national Democrats.
Yes, I know that, one day we'll have to set aside some time and go into real depth about abortion, because, just the mischaracterization of the Dobbs opinion and the narrative, the really negative narrative that's emerged around the Dobbs decision. Actually, the Dobbs decision was pro-state, pro-jurisdictional. That's the main thing it was, and that's the way probably it should have been for a long time. And even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said this should have been an issue for the states to resolve.
If you like federalism, you like the Dobbs decision.
Right.
And of course, the Democrats hate federalism. They are the prime movers, moving us from a federal government to a national government, and they're much happier with 9 politicians in black robes than they are with the hoi polloi out in the states.
Right. I really hate some of the voting shenanigans and voting policy shenanigans that have been going on nationally. I think that we should have voter ID. We should have a requirement for a person to show who they are. We should be able to track if if people are voting in more than one jurisdiction with multiple IDs. All of these are things that we should have, and we'll see where it goes from there.
True enough, Ron.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, sir.
All right, good talking to you as usual. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to Churchill Downs, and when we leave Churchill Downs, we'll take a plane from Louisville, Kentucky. We'll take the supersonic transport, the SST, from Churchill Downs straight to Paris, land at Orly Field, or what's the name of the newest airport? La Bourget, I think it is, yeah. And Frenchie will be waiting out there on the tarmac for us. He probably won't have his nighttime driver with him, but he'll be there.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Hoffaday, this is Severina. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more global markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam, Saipan, and on U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com.
Okay, here we are, Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky, and as I promised, we're climbing on the supersonic transport, flying from Louisville straight to Paris. And who do I see out there on the tarmac without his nighttime driver? None other than Frenchie. Hello, Frenchie.
Hello, Robert. How are you?
Good.
I have to correct you on the airports.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Le Bourget is the oldest of the three airports in Paris. It's where Charles Lindbergh landed when he crossed the Atlantic. And it was the main airport until after World War II. And it is now the largest general aviation airport in Europe, which is for corporate flights. Orly was the one that came in the early 60s, and it's south of Paris. And the newest airport, which is on its fourth phase now, is Charles de Gaulle, which is located in Roissy, which is about 20 miles northeast of Paris.
Yeah, so I was wrong, Frenchie, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. No,
Yeah.
that's not bad. So, yeah, one of my biggest comments, and I listened to McNish this morning and this afternoon, it is the elephant in the room that nobody is talking about, is that the largest block of voters on Saturday was people that didn't go to vote. And it is very interesting on many different levels. We were told it's the lowest turnout since 1972. We were not told by the specialists if it was actually in real numbers or in percentage of people registered. I would probably think it's the second one, but we will see. And there is no digging on the subject by the media, but it's quite important because most people understood that if Lou wanted to win the primary, she needed a very low turnout so that she could get all the people that are very much for her to go and vote while the others are not going to vote. And I think this was one of her tactic, was like she did against Agun, by splitting the vote of the Democrat. This time she wanted a lower turnout, and this was achieved in part by the proxy attacks that were launched against St. Nicholas regarding everything but the kitchen sink. And the mistake that St. Nicholas did was thinking he could stay above the fray. And he should have hit back as hard as he could, but he did not. He was absent. Just like Agun 4 years ago, they were absent of the fight. And then they're surprised that the governor, who spent 25 times the same amount of money than St. Nicholas, won. And won by a third of the vote. You know, she won one third more, so she has 2/3 of the vote. He's got a little more than 1/3. So it's very interesting to see. And the other elephant in the room is the fact that St. Nicholas so far has kept quiet. Now his running mate came out. She was quite emotional. I think she is upset, but she was fairly dignified in the defeat. But we don't know what St. Nicholas is going to do. Now, I don't think he's going to use the nuclear option and ask to vote against Lou, because that would be properly cutting his own bridge with the DNC. But he could leave the choice of the people that supported him to decide if they want to vote for Lou or not. And that would be in itself a big blow to Lou, and she would have to spend even more money. I suspect that she could spend another $1 million between now and the election day.
You know, Frenchie, when it comes to San Nicolas, it could be the case of not what he does,
but what he doesn't do.
But what he doesn't do.
Yeah. And I think we're probably going to find out in this coming week. And the governor might be negotiating in the back, but she has so much antipathy for him that I don't know how far it's going to go. It's going to be one of the big question marks on the Democratic side. And I know if you look at the fact that more than 58% of people didn't go to vote, that leaves a huge reservoir for people on the actual race to do two things. A, to get people excited about this election, which the governor has no interest to do. She wants to keep on claiming that they've done a great job for the last 4 years and so on and so forth. So on the governor race, you are right. I think Felix Camacho has a mountain to climb. He's outspent probably 10-1. He should probably try to raise money. It's never going to be enough to go after Lou, but he should attack Lou on all the promises that she made 4 years ago that she didn't keep, and coordinate with the rest of the GOP candidate, which I agree with McNich on this. They need to have one voice about what the main guideline of these elections are. And they're going to have to decide about the pro-life issue versus Lou. Because if you see Lewin on the jet plane, already is attacking Doug Moylan on that issue, because he saw that on the East Coast, in the really deep blue states, it is an issue that can help the Democrat candidate to accuse the other side of being pro-life. And if the Republicans get browbeaten by this, they will lose the election, because they need to fight tooth and nail on that life issue, but I'm afraid they are very lukewarm. And the reason they are lukewarm is also because the Archdiocese is totally absent of the debate. I wrote about it last week before the election. There is no leadership on the pro-life side, and the pro-life people have been again asked not to make too many waves. And that's very sad, because this is one of the main issues. And Doug Moylan brought a very good issue when he was doing his interview with Troy Torres on Candid News, part of his earned media that he got. He also mentioned it again was he was interviewed by PNC on the TV, was that what the governor did was basically by putting the National Guard on the roads was declare martial law, and that a real attorney general should have challenged this in the court, and that Lewin is too close to the governor and her family, and he's kind of having a bromance with her son-in-law, and this is detrimental to the role of the attorney general in the race and for the people of Guam. So those are all issues that are going to be determined. I think you did a very good analysis on the senators. I'm not going to visit that today, but except to say that a lot of the people that were blacklisted by the left wing of the Democratic Party actually did poorly, except for St. Augustine and Malafunk. But the others are not doing quite well. So it's interesting to see. And then finally, on the delegate, I don't know if Jim Moylan has the balls to run a tough campaign against One Pat.
You mean One Pat 10?
Go after her for that scandal of giving herself a raise. Go after her for the fact that she is very close. If she is elected and there is a red wave in D.C., she will have nothing to work with because she's going to work with Republicans. She's going to have to work with Republicans that are the antithesis of what they want to do. One Pat is a leftist. She's all out there with Ocasio-Cortez and the Muslim from Minneapolis. She is a far left radical. She is unashamed about it. She claims that, and she does not, but absolutely does not represent the majority of the people of the island who are not far leftist. But you can see by the numbers of votes she got, very similar to the governor. It's the Booby Underwood crowd, and it's the few people from the government of Guam that vote for Lou and will follow her to hell if necessary. So Jim Moylan needs to take the gloves out and go after One Pat and show her for what she is, a far leftist, a dishonest politician, and I do not know that he has the chutzpah to do that. And I don't know if Bobby, what's his name, Grindy, his counselor, is ready for a fight against her. But if he wants to win, he has to push the fact that most likely the House will be held by the Republican. And why should we want to elect a Democrat in a Republican House? So, and attack her on her lack of courage, on her lack of honesty, and go after her. Go after her. Go after her. You know, you are not. If you lose, but you lose fighting, at least you put up a good fight. But if you're not going to do a fight, then why do you run? So that's the same message for Felix Camacho. He's going to have to take the gloves out, and I don't know if Ada is able to do it. I doubt it. But you can see that Lou is already taking the gloves off against them, trying to portray them as extremists, religious activists, and so on and so forth. So this is going to be the dirty Democrat playbook against the Country Club Republican, and the Country Club Republican need to put a little vodka in their drinks and start getting pissed and take names and make a real fight and coordinate with the Senate candidates. They need to have a common, they cannot be all over the board. They need to choose 4 or 5 issues, make sure they all understand and agree on those issues, and go after the incumbents and go after the governor. You know, that's my analysis of this last Saturday's election.
And a great analysis it was, Frenchie. And one thing I compliment you on that I overlooked is really important, and that is that the largest block of voters are the people that stayed home.
Yeah.
So if the Republicans want to be successful, they've got to do what's called getting out the vote.
They need to go out there and convince those people that were disillusioned and convince them that Felix Camacho and his team and the Republican in the Senate can bring the bacon home and make sure that the mistakes of Lou in the past 4 years will be corrected and that the people would be put first, not last. I think this is the big thing to get the votes out. We know that Lou has the groundwork in the municipalities. I do not know if the GOP has enough volunteers to do that, but they need to try, at least to try. And they need to have that message out and convince the largest block of voters, which was the people that didn't go to vote.
That's very true. That's very true. Well, dynamite analysis as usual, Frenchie, and thanks for helping me out with the locations of the airports in Paris. I knew about Charles de Gaulle, but it's kind of slipped from my memory. 3 airports in Paris.
3 airports, yeah. And
Got
so
it.
Le Bourget was turned into, because it was still a public thing, but now it's turned into general aviation for corporate and private jets.
I'll remember that the next time I fly over there in my Learjet
If you
instead
want
of...
to fly to Le Bourget, you'll have to ask me to use my jet.
I'll do it, Frenchie. Good talking to you. So long. And let's say goodbye to our president.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The questions keep coming. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. More questions are rising following Friday's unsealing of a redacted version of the affidavit that led to the FBI search of former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. Some people are pressing for additional information before saying whether the search was justified.
It's hard to believe that the Justice Department, the FBI, would take steps unless they had something pretty serious that they were investigating. We just don't know the facts yet.
Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan speaking on CBS's Face the Nation. A federal judge in Florida says she is inclined to appoint a special master to review the documents, which is something the former president's legal team has requested. Lawmakers denouncing President Biden's new plan that forgives thousands of dollars in student loans, wondering how it will